Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dorm Next Door podcast. This episode was a little bit delayed for Christmas. That's not really a good reason at all. You know what I mean? It's just Christmas, right? Right. Anyways, I'm so happy to have you guys here with me this week. Got a good episode. A little bit more under the radar stuff in terms of this past week in our country. Some stuff is always happening. Some stuff has happened. We've seen the rise of just a movement in this country, specifically with young people coming out of America Fest to really take back their country. So for somebody that I know that was there physically at America Fest, there was this divide between young people and old people. And the crazy thing is that if you're watching a speech, let's say you're watching the video of Ben Shapiro speaking, whatever you're doing, let's say you're watching Ben Shapiro's speech on YouTube and you hear all of the cheers for the stuff that he is saying concerning Zionism, concerning the state of Israel, concerning ideas that are now becoming very, very unpopular. So you'll hear a lot of people seemingly on his side. You'll say, well, this push against Zionism on the right, it is actually not as popular, and it's actually losing ground. It's a losing battle. But that's actually not true. It seems like the young people were actually in the back of the room. So everybody that is in favor, most of the people that have the money to spend on the nicer seats, on the nicer tickets, the people closer to the front were the ones that are older. So they're very much so more in favor of Zionism and so unequivocal, unconditional support for the state of Israel than the younger people are, who were more or less towards the back of the room. That was the divide. Just an interesting thing that an interesting nugget idea that I thought that I'd drop at the beginning of this episode. But I'm so thankful that you are here listening to get your news or whatever for the week from me, this guy. Don't go anywhere else for the news. Only trust one source. Me. That's right. Don't get your news. I'm kidding. That's actually not really that funny. Anyways, I wanted to talk about the issue of fraud. And now the thing is that fraud is happening recently. It's been coming to light. There's been fraud specifically in two areas that I would like to talk about. I'd like to talk about it in Minnesota, and I'd also like to talk about it here in California. So I'll talk about one, and then I'll jump to the other. However, one thing that I would like to drop off is that recently, over the last 48 hours, since the release of this podcast episode, Israel has become the first country to recognize Somaliland, not Somalia. Israel has become the first country to recognize Somaliland as a sovereign and independent nation. The nation has existed since it broke off from Somalia in 1991. And in a FaceTime call with their president, Prime Minister from Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, said that he hopes to work with Somaliland agriculturally and economically. Now, first, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this clip. There's a lot of moving parts to help you understand fully what's going on. But apparently, so he essentially signs this document, which is the recognition, and right before he does sign this, he FaceTimes the president. And there's a group of people around the president, so it's like a whole ceremony. It's kind of meant to look informal because it's not a formal meeting. It's not a video call or whatever. It is an iPhone FaceTime call. So I want you to watch this clip.
Mr. President.
Mr. Prime Minister.
It's good to talk to you. And before anything else, I want you to know that I'm signing now, as we speak, Israel's official recognition of Somaliland and its right of self-determination. Our friendship is seminal and historic. So I'm very, very happy and I'm very proud of this day, and I want to wish you and the people of Somaliland the very, very best there. I think this will be a great opportunity for expanding our partnership. We intend to work together with you on economic fields, on agriculture, in the fields of social development, all the things that we hope we can assist you, and we obviously believe in this friendship. And I have to tell you that there's a lot of excitement here in Israel as well. So I want to use this opportunity, sir, to invite you to an official visit to Israel at your convenience. And I hope very much to see you here soon. This is a wonderful day. It's a historic day. And of course, I'll communicate to President Trump your willingness and desire to join the Abraham Accords. So thank you, Mr. President. Please convey my best regards and the best regards of the people of Israel to the independent people of Somaliland. Thank you, sir.
That's a great moment and great historical day.
So you'd think recognizing a sovereign nation, a new one, a smaller one, an unknown one, right? I didn't really know what Somaliland was before this happened. I'll be completely honest. Most people don't. So you would think, okay, it's a good thing to recognize the birth of a nation. However, that's not how many, many countries are reacting. Specifically, Arab countries in Somalia itself, the mother country that used to contain Somaliland within it, is completely opposed to it. And in fact, Somalia says and believes that this is simply an effort, along with the other Arab countries. All these people believe that it is an effort to displace Palestinians in this land. So Netanyahu's efforts to grow closer to Somaliland, to foster a good, positive relationship with Somaliland, seem to all be in an effort to move all the Palestinians there, which not necessarily, you can't necessarily say if it's true or not true, but even in 1960, Israel supported for a short period of time, during Somaliland's shorter stint in time as an independent country, Israel supported them then. Israel has shown interest supporting them and recognizing their sovereignty in 2010. So this is not a new thing. It seems for the entirety of Somaliland's existence, they have always been supported by Israel, whether formally now or informally over the years. They have always had support from Israel, which is very interesting. It's almost like it is reasonable for all the Arab countries to react and say, okay, what if this is an effort to groom the smaller, relatively unknown country? Because at this point, Israel is now a economic and arms superpower in the Middle East. They are the 8th largest weapons manufacturer in the world. So at this point, if you're a brand new country and you're being recognized and Israel is seemingly a friend to you, it's not unrealistic, it's not crazy for the reaction of many of these countries to see it as an effort to groom them for Israel's interests. So it didn't even go well with the United States because Netanyahu stated that he wants Somaliland to join the Abraham Accords. Even Trump, though, at this point is not ready to embrace Somaliland independence or sovereignty as a nation. He said recently, does anyone know what Somaliland is, really? In response to his hesitancy and decline to recognize Somaliland himself, which is what Netanyahu wants. But here's what I'm going to be honest. Using pattern recognition and knowing how things have played out with the United States and Israel over the last 40 years plus, I'm pretty sure Trump will most likely change his mind come the next few months, maybe even a few years. It's not crazy to say that he'll eventually be on the same page as Netanyahu because he seems to be on the same page as Netanyahu on about 95% of issues. Right? You can't just be 100% on the side of Israel has always gotten everything that they wanted from the United States, because that's not necessarily true. It's not. There have been times where, say, President George H.W. Bush in the early 90s wanted to halt and threatened to halt aid and actually halted aid for a few months to try and get Israel to come to the table on an issue. But even still, we're always the country that ends up budging. H.W. Bush resumed aid as normal a few months after that, with Israel not coming to the table. So there have been efforts, right? There has been United States disagreement, even at this point. There has been times where our country, whoever's running it, the president, has not sided with Israel on an issue. But if there's one thing that's certain, we always can point out that the United States has been the country to come around, not Israel. The United States has always been the country to compromise. The United States has, in the end, given in to Israel at the negotiation table. Super interesting stuff. But do I think that we're going to see a change here at this point? Do I think that Trump is going to stand his ground in not supporting Somaliland's independence? No. I have there's no reason for me to believe that that's going to be the case. There's no reason at all from the way that we've seen the last 60 years. I think he'll be on the same page relatively soon because there's 4 representatives in Congress that want to recognize Somaliland. That is, Representative Scott Perry. He sponsored the bill called the Republic of Somaliland Independence Act, which was introduced to the House on June 12th, 2025, June 12th of this year. And there are 3 congressmen and women who are also co-sponsoring this bill. And that's Representative Tom Tiffany, Andy Ogles, and Tim Burkett. Many of you guys know Tim Burkett. He's on a social media high right now. He is somebody that is... There's a video... He's pretty funny. There's a video of Tim Burkett on a regular basis flaming this kid. So there's a kid on the Capitol that tends to follow him around and ask him questions, and then with his iPhone trying to film him, whatever. And then Tim Burkett has his own staff filming the interaction with him and this kid, and they clip it for social media. So Tim Burkett has been very, very popular on Instagram because he's kind of out of pocket. Like, wow, a congressman is roasting this kid's outfit. It's kind of funny, it's cool, but at the same time, the actual policy of this man shows that he is unequivocal in his support for Israel. He believes in Zionism. He believes that our aid should be relatively unconditional. He supports recognizing Somaliland, which is an interesting issue because I can't, as of this point, find a real connection between our own representatives wanting to support the state of Somaliland's independence because specifically of Israel. However, you know what I can guarantee? I can guarantee, like I just said, if Israel does not budge on the issue, then we will see our entire government, our entire legislation, and the White House follow suit in giving Israel what they want. So as of right now, these 4 could be wanting to recognize the country for strategic reasons, right? So that we can have a better shot in the Middle East, a better shot in Africa, because investment from Russia and China has been something that we haven't really been able to keep up with, right? So this could be seen as an effort for the United States to, in some ways, try and even the playing field, right? But I think over time, we'll start to see the issue shift just a little bit. Part of the issue could, with our support for Israel, with our support for whoever we're teamed up with in the Middle East and Africa, is always going to partially, right? There's always going to be a million reasons why. It's going to partially be because we want to have strategic positions in Africa and the Middle East, because that's just how the way it's been. We fought proxy wars with the Soviet Union for half of the 20th century, right? Wanting to have satellite states is important for large empires running the world, and especially when we're in competition with a country like China. But the thing is that when it comes to Israel, when it comes to Somaliland and Israel's recognition of Somaliland, we have to look at these issues as well, as if Israel's interests are going to take priority over United States strategic ones for their own well-being. We always, whenever we're evaluating United States foreign policy in the Middle East and Africa, we should also look at it through the lens of, is this going to benefit Israel first and foremost? Because that seems to be a recurring theme here. It seems to be that when something is going to benefit Israel, you will see the United States on that ship. Not always immediately, but pretty soon after the fact. And this is going to be interesting too. It's very, very interesting that Netanyahu is willing to do this, and it could show really how big of a stronghold that Israel has on the United States because of the recent criticism of Somalis living in the United States, specifically in Minnesota, which has come under criticism of J.D. Vance, which has come under the criticism of Trump, which has come under the criticism of a bunch of people on the right. Shills that are paid on the right to just mirror the talking points of the Trump administration. There are people that do that. And we're going to notice maybe they're going to start to change their tone a little bit because of this issue. I think it's very interesting. And it's an opportunity for us to watch this, for us to watch Israel's influence over the United States play out in real time. It's going to be, are we going to change our attitude towards Somalis just because of what Israel is saying, just because of the way that they want to recognize Somaliland for their own strategic benefit? The Somalian issue it's a big issue today because it's really showing just how bad it gets when you import the worst. May I say that? It really shows the negative impacts of the immigration that we've had in our country over the last 40 years. Because they're the pinnacle of this issue. Now I'm going to shift gears a little bit. And I'm going to talk about somebody that she's from Somalia herself. Somebody that's in our own politics. So Ilhan Omar, who is from Somalia and is a United States representative from Minnesota, has recently come under fire, and people are starting to notice. So she won her race for Minnesota's 5th district, right? And she went from being very poor. Ilhan Omar came to the United States very, very poor. I think she was a waitress. So she enters Congress where she makes $174,000 a year salary. However, in a year, she became worth close to nothing to being worth $30 million. So can we say it right now? If anybody comes out from the other side of working for the government rich, especially that rich, then they are probably corrupt. I'm not even going to say probably. If somebody comes out on the other side of a government salary, which is intended to be more modest, right? If somebody comes on the other side of making $140,000 a year, how much, and they are a multi-millionaire, then they are 100% corrupt. Nobody should be getting rich from government. We literally saw Nancy Pelosi, the greatest stock trader of all time. Like, let's be honest here. There is literally a Nancy Pelosi trade tracker that is making people a lot of money because they simply copy and they do exactly what Nancy Pelosi is doing. They have to disclose it. Nancy has to disclose when she makes a trade. However, nobody's doing anything about all these things in plain sight, right? There's an effort now to ban congressional stock trading, which is a good thing because it's been talked about enough. We will not relent on the fact that that is a bad thing. But at the same time here, she's not getting in enough trouble. Ilhan Omar is not getting in enough trouble. We're not racist for pointing out the fact that she shouldn't represent our country. She doesn't have our best interest in mind. And she is most likely a criminal. So let's talk about some sequence of events here with just the whole getting rich overnight thing. Because being $30 million richer in 1 year does not come from any ordinary means of income. Even making the extraordinary income like, let's say $200,000 a month, when you're doing really, really well for yourself, you're not going to be $30 million richer in a single year. However, let's talk about this. In 2020, Ilhan Omar introduced the Meals Act, and this relaxed the oversight of government-sponsored children's meals. This led to millions of meals being given out. So millions of dollars of government money at this point could simply be pocketed by companies that are claiming to give these meals away, but there's really no way to make sure that they're telling the truth. There's no tracking. There's no way to, grant this money so that the government tracks exactly how it's spent. It's very, very loosely watched. So people can steal taxpayer money in the sums of millions of dollars. So in 2022, her husband started a venture capital management firm called Rose Lake Capital. And in just a year, they were managing $60 billion worth of assets. This is Ilhan Omar's husband. So he went from starting out, brand new firm, and has $60 billion under his own management in a year. That company accelerated in its worth. Ilhan Omar, who's making $174,000 a year, is now worth $30 million in this same span of time. So during the same time that the oversight for the meals were loosened, during the same time, $9 billion have been shown to be a part of a fraud scheme in her own district, in her own Somali community, right under her nose. So this was all going on under her, lest I say overview. She's supposed to be in charge of this. She's supposed to oversee this. Yet it all played out right under her nose. I really don't like this lady, I'll be honest. I don't want her in our country. I'd say about half of us across this nation don't want her in our country either. What is she doing? She's coming from Africa to the United States, talking about how awful she did. Talking about how awful we are. Do you guys remember I think this was 2019, this was when she was fresh to Congress, she referred to 9/11 as some people did something. And now she's in Congress. She's one of the more well-known people in Congress. Her and her husband got rich overnight. She is literally a parasite to our country. She is sucking our country from the wealth that it has, irresponsibly having fraud occur right under her nose. Meanwhile, she's calling you and I racists. She wants a change to our country. She's a socialist. She wants to destroy all the things that made this country wealthy enough to give her the same money she steals from us. So the country that we live in, the wealthy, rich country that we live in today, made possible by people like you and I, our ancestors building this country, the stuff that made our country great, which she hates so much and has benefited so much from, it proves she is not one of us. She hates our country. She just shouldn't be here. This is something that we've been echoing for years at this point. She should probably be behind bars. She should be behind bars. And I think if you just did a little bit of digging, it'd become apparent that she's a criminal. So she should be behind bars, yes, but she shouldn't even be behind bars in the United States of America. Then she'd just be taking even more taxpayer money at that point to keep her housed. When is it going to stop? When are we actually going to do something about it? When are we actually going to kick these people out of our country? That's a question that needs to be answered. And in the same sphere of this, there was just recently a journalist who went to a daycare in Minnesota after investigating millions of dollars that had been given from the government to this daycare, supposedly for the children, obviously, right? And then him and another guy visited this daycare, and guess what? There were no children at all. There were no children at that daycare or the daycare next door. And in fact, when he wanted to go inside and investigate the place to see what was going on, they pulled the door as hard as they possibly could to lock it and to keep him out from wanting transparency with their taxpayer dollars, for wanting to know what's actually going on. These Somalis were literally stealing money from our country and acting like we're trying to break in, acting like this guy's trying to break in when he just wants transparency. We're being ripped off. We're being stolen from. I want you guys to watch this clip for yourself. It is absolutely phenomenal journalism. Take a look.
Here we have 2 child daycare centers. We have the Minnesota Child Care Center, and then we also have Nuna. Between the two, 2.66 million. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Why are you recording?
Yes. We would like to know.
Well, it says we're trying to figure out 102 children. Is that for this facility?
What is the name? Why is it?
It's from the state of Minnesota website. It says you have 102 children here in your child care.
Which child care name is a lot of
Minnesota Child Care right here. It's from the state of Minnesota's website. We're just wondering where the children are.
Where the children are?
Yeah, where are the children? It says you have 102 children here,
Okay.
and you got $2.66 million this year in funding,
Oh,
and
who
2.5 million last year. We're just wondering where the kids are.
And who are you?
My name's Nick Shirley.
Nick Shirley.
And where are you? Which department?
Oh, we are from ourselves.
Yeah.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. Look at that. Shut us down. Where are the children at? No children inside of this daycare center. And look, at this daycare center right here, no children inside of this daycare center.
So this is a daycare that, with the millions of dollars it's been given, is doing better than like 99% of other daycares. But it's a daycare with no kids. I mean, what even is that? What's the lady doing there? I'd like to know more about these ladies. I'd like to know, maybe I'd like to know what kind of car they drive. I'd like to know what kind of a house they live in. Obviously, for their own safety, I don't want their address to be public, but I think it'd be nice to know just how they're living. Maybe the millions of dollars have translated into them living a very nice lifestyle. I don't think that'd be crazy. Happens all the time. People steal money from our government all the time. They don't get caught. These people got caught pretty good. It's justice that we know exactly what's going on, that we see who the criminals are, but there needs to be a lot more done. There's a lot more of them. I'm going to tell you that much. There is a lot more of them. This stuff is going on an even bigger scale in my own home state of California. So, over the last 2 years, California has been in a $55 billion deficit from this last fiscal budget. We are now negative $55 billion just from this period of time. Before that, 2022 to 2023, I think it was in the 20s. And then from 2026 to 2027, it's not going to get any better. They're also going to be about $18 billion down, right? So already, we're in bad shape with the fiscal responsibility of the governor to make budgets and hope that we don't become poor. Because Gavin Newsom himself flaunts all the time the fact that, well, what is California, like the 6th largest economy in the world? Right? If we broke off from the United States, we would be independently one of the wealthiest countries in the world just from all that we have, right? So he loves to brag about that. But let's talk about the way that our own taxpayer money is being spent. Fraudulently. Most likely. Can't say for sure. Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff, Dana Williamson, from 2022 until December of 2024, relatively recently, since she left working for him, was recently indicted in November on a 23-count federal indictment. Let's just read. I'm going to read some of the things that she's could be in for. Conspiracy to commit bank fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States and obstruct justice, subscribing to false tax returns and making false statements. So this includes fraudulent tax returns for her business, deductions for personal expenses like vacations to Mexico and such. And then she allegedly conspired to divert $225,000 from a dormant campaign account linked to Xavier Becerra through fake consulting invoices. And this all continued under her time working for Gavin Newsom. So these are the kind of people that work for him. right? Now, everybody can have issues, right? Everybody can have bad people around them. Good people can have bad people surrounding him. I'm not saying he's a good person. I'm just saying it happens, right? But I think this speaks to the bigger issue as to what's going on in California. Because over the last 5 years, $24 billion have been allocated for homelessness. They have no data as to show if that the money is doing anything. They have been tracking the way that it's been spent to the point where we can see results. And homelessness has actually increased during this time. There's been nothing to suggest that the $24 billion has been going to what it has been, what it said it was supposed to be going towards. There's just no way to know. So, you know what I think? At this point, if his own chief of staff was this fraudulent, I'd say it's worth looking into. Not to say he's done anything wrong. I can't say that because I don't have proof as of this moment. But I'd say it's worth looking into if the entire thing is just full of people committing crimes, stealing money. Because if you can't find $24 billion, either they're all idiots and they don't know what they're doing as far as managing a budget or money, or they're criminals. They're conspiring to commit fraud and steal money from our government. What do you guys think was happening? Do you think that they're just stupid and they misplaced $24 billion as seen in the most recent audit for the 2024 year? Or do you think that the government of California is just like Dana Williamson here, and they're all committing major crimes, and that $24 billion that we can't account for has been stolen or gone to whatever the heck else? I'll tell you what, Gavin Newsom himself is very rich. He just bought a mansion. Obviously, I know he owns wineries and such. But these people live so lavishly, and they've taken out billions of dollars of taxpayer money. I'm a California taxpayer. I pay state and federal tax. So the rich are taking large sums of money from taxpayers, and you're not seeing the way that it's spent. You're not seeing the results. There are thousands more homeless in this period of time than used to be. I'm like flabbergasted at this point. $24 billion. That's billion with a B. For the state of California over 5 years to help the homelessness crisis. And we've seen the number increase by tens of thousands. We have a majority for the entire nation. We have over 50% of the nation's unsheltered homeless. We have a smaller fraction of the overall homeless for the country, but we have the majority of the unsheltered. So that $24 billion is not being used for what you think it's being used for. And I pray to God that these things are going to come to light, and we're going to see the way that the money is spent. Just a whole episode about fraud, a whole episode about manipulation, a whole episode about how the people in power have ulterior motives to do things underneath the surface to manipulate, to steal for their own personal gain, for their own personal goals. It's to show that when somebody's in power and they mean to do things, maybe they tell everybody they want to make the world a better place. Okay, well, what are they actually doing? Some of them are trying to displace Palestinians in a country, so they're making friends with that country and grooming that brand new country. Or they are getting rich with their husband in under a year while they're stealing money from a country that they hate. All speculation at this point. And they're stealing billions of dollars from California that's supposed to be going towards homelessness, and we just can't figure out what happened where. This is the kind of things that are going on in the world. I only talked about a few issues this week, but I'm pretty sure there's about 1 million other cases of this going on in the United States and beyond. But other than that, that's going to do it for this episode. I'm so thankful that you tuned in this week. I'll see you all next week. Pass this episode on to a friend if you liked it. If you didn't, that's okay. You'll come back next week, I hope. But I'm so honored that you chose to spend this half hour, however long this is, I actually don't know. Thank you for spending it with me, listening to this podcast. You are a blessing. Have a great week and take care. God bless.